Welcome, Kanika. I'm so happy to have you on today, fellow mother, entrepreneur, and much more.
Thank you, Laura. The pleasure is all mine.
Well, I want to launch into your background because you have so much expertise in a variety of ways, but starting off from television and then marketing, were you always a creative individual and were you always kind of comfortable in front of people? Or is that something you had to develop? Yeah, you were.
Yes. Yeah. I think it was so innate. And I feel like, I'll take it back to when I was little. My parents immigrated from India to the US when I was 2. And I feel like that really shaped who I was as far as my identity. And so though in my roots, I was very South Asian and kind of staying true to my cultural heritage, I was very American. And the same goes for my creative. I, was just this overachiever student, I would say. And so I did my science and math as my parents wanted, but then creatively, I really gravitated towards journalism and storytelling. And in my youth, well into my adulthood, dance. I was trained Indian classical dancer in the art form of kuchipudi specifically, and then went on to join a troupe in New York called the Sa Dance Company, where we performed at Ailey and the Museum of Art and Design and many other prestigious venues. So I feel like I tapped into a little bit of the rational, logical right brain, and then my other interests were well into the left brain side of things.
Can you tell me a little bit about Indian dance? Because I have experienced it some and I find it so, it just sparks joy. And at least the one that I tried was a lot of the head movement.
Yes.
Yes. So can you, what is that? Yeah. What is that? Because it's so fun and it's challenging for those of us who weren't born doing that.
Yes. Yes. What I love about Indian dance is that it kind of has certain, sorry, do you edit this?
Somebody edits it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Edit this, people. Yeah.
Yeah. Edit this a little bit. 1 second. I want to just look up. Okay. So Indian dance has 3 very distinct components: nritya, and natya. And I feel like that really sets it apart. So nritya is known as pure dance. It's all things technical. So if you look at the footwork, it's much like river dance. It's very technical, on the beat, and very elaborate. Nritya is rooted in abhinaya, which is emotion. And so it's so distinct when you watch an Indian dance performance, but we are trying to evoke some sort of emotion in the audience, and so there were dance pieces where I was actually crying on stage, like real tears streaming down my face, because the music and the piece and the storyline warranted it. So that's where nritya comes in. And then I messed up. Sorry. That was right. Sorry. You're gonna have to edit this a little bit again, but I feel like it's important to say the points properly. And natya also has facets of abhinaya, the emotions on one's face, but it's natya is drama. And so we're telling a story. It's like all the world is a stage, as a Shakespearean play once quoted. So it's rooted in that drama that we're trying to portray something that's happened. And so a lot of it is derived from the epics, the Hindu epics, whether it's a Ramayana or a Mahabharata. But you're acting out all these different characters, the villains and the demons to the kings and the princesses, and each one has their own arc and story to tell. So Natya allows you to bring that to life. And that's what I love about dance, because it's not just movement. It's so much more. It's something that's so visceral, and you feel it in your core and your heart.
Yeah, and that's what emotions are. They're like, energy in motion. They're feeling that we have. And I absolutely agree with everything you said, because I felt all of that when I was practicing myself, but also just observing the people. And it really sounds like you have a strong connection to your heritage. I'm curious, as someone who immigrated, was that ever something that you struggled with, staying attached to that? Did you ever feel like you kind of wanted to leave it behind, become fully American?
Yeah, no, I think that we definitely had, those thoughts running through our head, especially growing up in a community where it was a little bit more, homogeneous. And I actually tried to challenge it. I still remember in third grade when we had a talent show, I chose to do a kuchipudi dance piece for my class in the assembly. And so the principal, all the grades were there, and all the teachers and faculty. And I was dressed in this red and gold costume and jewelry, headdress, bangles, the alta, which is the red marker on my hands and feet, the bells, decked out in the garb. And after my performance, I wondered, are my friends going to think I'm weird? That I have this whole other identity. But they loved it. They absolutely loved it. They're like, wow, it's so ornate and so pretty. And, tell us what everything means, and, why you're wearing that, and why you danced and were, mouthing the lyrics that way. What were you saying? They were so curious. And I think that set me on my path to embrace where I'm from. And so if it was telling friends and teachers about Diwali every year, and I do that for my kids now. I took Diwali to the nursery school, and kind of educating about India. I take every opportunity that I can. But then, on the flip side, it was hard because, I had to break down what homecoming was to my parents. They were like, well, why, what's up with these football games and having to go to dances and stuff? It was so foreign to them. So yeah, there was definitely this, two worlds that we had to kind of straddle, but it made me, very much who I am. And, it's why I like telling stories now.
I can imagine. It's almost, you have an advantage that some of us don't, by having two very large worlds to draw upon, and that they don't have to negate each other, but they can really embellish each other. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that, like you said, that has given you a lot of weaving material for storytelling. So yes. How did you become an anchor? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I'll take it back to my childhood again, because I think, those formative years really make this lasting impression on your life. So news was just like a mainstay in our house. We always had the news on, and I loved watching Connie Chung and Peter Jennings. And one thing that was ritual was every day at 4, my mom, my grandmother, my sister, my aunt, and me would pile together on her small sofa in my mom's bedroom and watch Oprah at 4. Mm. And it was something that I still remember so vividly. But she had this ability to, interview a criminal or an inmate or a celebrity, and those stories stuck with you. And I have this photographic memory. So I almost remember every interview that I saw, and could even quote what a celebrity said or whatever it may be. And so that's how I knew I wanted to go down this path and this particular path of journalism. So I went to Boston University for undergrad, where I majored in international relations, and then University of Miami for grad school, where I earned my master's in broadcast journalism. And then on a whim, I moved to India. So it's funny how life comes full circle. But this was because many mentors in my field said, consider being in an international market, because television, especially broadcast news, is booming in those areas, much more than on the national level. So I thought, okay, let me just move to India and see what happens. And there were only a handful of international networks. There was CNN and BBC and Times Now, which is owned by Reuters. And I gave myself a month and was, eventually hired by CNN. And it was the most fruitful, immersive experience I could have ever asked for. I started as a producer, and within 6 months became an anchor, and worked a lot of late nights and worked my butt off, and began anchoring the show that I produced called E! Tonight. And I covered everything from the terror attacks, the 26/11 terror attacks that happened when I was just a month into the job. And I interviewed survivors. And Slumdog Millionaire was another milestone event. And that was something that really put India on the map, winning Best Picture at the BAFTAs, at the Oscars. And one thing that kind of allowed me to hone in on my style of storytelling, which is now at the intersection of entertainment, human interest, and family life. This one piece that I did really cemented it for me. So when there was this whole hoopla around Slumdog Millionaire's win, I, instead of kind of focusing on the two leads, Dave Patel and Frida Pinto, I chose to interview Rubina Ali. She played
Hold on, you are freezing right now. Yeah, you just froze.
Okay.
So
Whoops.
if you just go back, I don't know why you froze. Uh-oh, now I'm freezing.
All good, all good.
Okay, yeah. If it was literally like you said, somebody who played some, who is the last person who said who played someone?
Oh, yeah. So, so I chose to interview the young child actress, Rubina Ali, and she played Latika, the main character in the movie, and she was cast by Danny Boyle, the director, from the slums. And she was actually from the largest slum in the world, Dharavi. There's 1 million residents that live there, and it's in the heart of Bombay, where I was. And so we did a whole day in the life expose, and she took me through just how she lives, the cold floor that she slept on, the shanties where all her relatives lived, how they pulled together their resources to make lentils and roti or bread on big cauldrons in the middle of the community. And if you can only imagine, this young 8-year-old girl, is born in abject poverty like this. And now she's getting on a plane for the first time. And she's walking the red carpet at Kodak Theater to accept her Oscar. Like, those are
Oh my gosh,
stories.
I have the chills. Like, I don't think you could write something
No,
magnificent, really.
Yes, and it's a real life story, and that's the kind of storytelling like I like to do. Is that it's heartwarming, it's poignant, it lasts, it just stays with you, and it makes you it incites some sort of change in your thinking and way of life, to appreciate like the beauty that humanity is, and so that's kind of what led me down this path to what I'm doing now.
Well, that just PS is one of my favorite movies of all time. I think there's very few movies I'll see multiple times, just because there's always more to see. But I've seen that, number of times. I've showed it to my kids. Every time it does this incredibly challenging walk of being inspiring, so inspiring, and also so revealing of some really grave situations,
Right.
ones that we would, most of us would not ever fully believe, in the, like you said, 1 million people live in this kind of abject poverty.
Yeah.
But it was a beautiful story, and so brilliantly and cleverly written. But that's amazing that you got to be there during that time too.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank
So
you.
it makes me wonder, like, I imagine that is a high octane life,
Yeah.
of like information coming in, talking to people. There's just so much pinging around. Was it challenging to leave that for your next stage?
Yes, it was. I enjoyed the buzz and the hustle bustle of the newsroom, and being in India, like your five senses are heightened on all levels. You've been before, so but it's like the colors, the sounds, the flavors, like everything is just like on another level altogether. And I enjoyed it for that time, but I think just life happens, and the reason I moved back was for love. I was seeing someone at the time, and I knew I wanted to see where things would go, and he's now my husband. And so I think I'm glad I trusted my gut on that one. And yeah, I took me back to New York, and I continued working as an executive producer and director of programming for some leading international networks. And it was great to be kind of overseeing what content is. And I think that's something that we don't think about, but there is a level of agenda setting. The reason why you watch a TV series or you see a certain news broadcast in front of you is because everyone in that organization, from the news director to the anchor, to the producer, to the reporter, to the person on the assignment desk, or if it's a scripted show in a similar vein, thinks that that's a story that needs to be told. And so on the flip side, when you're a viewer, you don't get to really be the decision maker in that. But when you're on the other side, you are. And so I think it's important to use really that power wisely and for the greater good. So that was, a wonderful experience. And then I started my digital marketing firm, and it was a pivot. But I think the reason I did it was because I felt like, television will always be there, but media was evolving, and I wanted to stay ahead of the time. And I wanted to be like, rolling with the punches. And so I thought whatever skill sets I have as a producer, as a storyteller, as an anchor, I should be able to parlay that to the digital realm. And I did that, and started an agency called Chronology, where I help brands build their narrative online from scratch. So your logos and messaging and web design and build. And that was great. And I did that for 5 years, and it's still active now, but it's not my main jam. The main thing that I'm working on now is my podcast, and that's become my brand. And that's called That's Total Mom Sense. And it's a fun play on words. Mom sense to me is our built-in sixth sense. And moms have it. There's a dad sense, there's a grandma sense. It's not meant to be pigeonholed in that sense, but we all have this inner knowing that we have to rely on. And I wanted to build my whole show around it because after I had my 3 kids, I felt so compelled to do it. I had twins, and when they were just 9 months old, I got pregnant with my third. So I didn't even have a beat to think. But when I had them all, I was just, yearning for answers, just like a journalist. It was like, somebody give me some answers. I need to problem solve, And then I thought, why don't I just take the mic, and as I find out the answers, be able to disseminate this enlightening information to the masses, and in the most organic and authentic way possible.
Well, it's such a a beautiful endeavor, and it's so needed. I mean, I think when moms really come together and we support one another, we can handle the challenges and the triumphs. But I think I want to just kind of unpack a little bit, because I love that mom sense idea. And I was reading what you had said, you knew from a young age you always wanted kids. So let's say somebody, because there are people out there that didn't necessarily have that, like they didn't say they didn't want kids, but they didn't have that thing, I'm going to be a mom, I can't wait to be a mom. And they're doubting this kind of natural sense. What are some early pointers you can give to those moms who are like, I'm a mom, I found a partner and I've decided to become a mom, but I really don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel like I'm not equipped for this. Help.
Yes. No, I think that's such a great question. I think it's something that, you kind of figure out as you go. There was this funny quote I came across. It says, parenting is like folding a fitted sheet. No one really knows how to do it.
Those fitted sheets are a motherfucker.
Right? Yeah, I hate those. And there's
them.
some that, you could just tuck it in and make it this perfect looking rectangle. But
Right.
it's not common to know how to do that. So yeah, you do it how you feel is best, and so even if you feel like you don't have those maternal instincts and it's something you've always wanted, I think really just sitting with yourself and just entertaining the idea of, if you were to have this life that you bring into the world, how would you want to help shape them into reaching their highest potential? And a lot of it forces you to go back to your childhood, face those generational traumas that I know I had. And it's just, you face them head on. And then what's so empowering is that you actually get to rewrite everything. Sure, your child is going to be his or her own independent thinker and conscious mind. So I think it's not steering them in a direction of being like you in any way. But if there were things that were unsettling that you want to unlearn that happened to you in your childhood, you get to write that in this one, and you get to fix that. And so I think that's a huge reason to become a parent.
That gave me the chills, because it's like almost you can't have your childhood back, but you can actually experience a newness of your own childhood through the experience of raising a child by making choices that are different, like what you would have wanted or you think you would have wanted, and that's what you can give. And I think that's like probably the best advice right there. So that was perfect, because I do think that people that might be hesitant or not trust themselves, maybe they came from a place where they didn't get those skills, or they didn't see that nurturing, or they don't feel like it's naturally, some kids you just see, like my daughter, she's just a nurturer. Like it is just, I don't think she might've got a little bit from me, but she just had that, like, my son was born and she just wanted him as her doll. There was never any competition. It's like, she does that with friends, and that's going to be her. That'll be natural to her, because she already has that wiring. But just because you don't have that or didn't have it doesn't mean that you can't foster it and develop it, and then feel how lovely that is to take care of and, mold and shape in a way the environment, at least, that you would want to have lived in. Yeah,
exactly.
Great advice. So what have you learned from having 3 kids in 2.5 years is no piece of cake. From when I've talked to you, I'm a triplet, and then my mom had a 2.5-year-old. So she almost has everybody beat. There's nobody that can quite top her with 4 in 2.5 years, but it doesn't matter. By the way, anybody that has one and feels like you're it's not a numbers game, like, because but it's just that there are more, you get outmanned. What have you learned, not only for your self-care? What have you observed that makes you a better mom for your own self-care? And then let's talk a little bit about what your kids have taught you, but start with yourself.
Sure. Yes. And, I actually just did this campaign for the podcast with March of Dimes, and interviewed Kelly Rowland, who is one of their spokespeople. And she's so beautiful and eloquent. And the whole campaign is moms come first. And it starts with mom. And so I love that we're starting there because, we were all born from a mother. And even though she gives, it's like, let's not forget where it all started. And if you are a mother, give yourself that credit and validation and grace always. So for me, I think I was very particular about setting boundaries and knowing what I felt were non-negotiables for myself, and then the things that I could delegate. And I think that's so important. We did have help and support with a night nurse when I had the twins, and a nanny during the day, and it was such a privilege. I felt like where I wanted to show up was I nursed all 3 of my kids, and so you have this like internal alarm that's going off every 3 hours for a year, that it's like, somebody's hungry, somebody's feeding. And it's amazing that connection you feel, because even when I was at like Target, I would be lactating at the time that, one of the twins needed me. So it really just, I feel like that was something that I showed up for. And I said, this is what I'm doing. But then in order to give myself space, I would make sure that I, incorporated time to go for a run or go to a workout class, or just kind of sit with my thoughts, journal. And I made sure that I had caretakers in place to take care of the little ones so I could do that. And for me, it's like self-care is far more spiritual. It's not like, putting on a face mask and doing a bubble bath. It was like, it's more doing that inner work and cultivating that relationship with yourself. And when you become a mother, I think you lose it, because so much of your being and your own sustenance is contingent on your babies. And so you forget who you are. So yeah, giving myself that time to meditate and journal was great. And with the kids, I mean, I'm learning every day. And I think, because I had all 3 in one full swoop, I was thrown into the deep end. But, I do believe that the universe gives you what you can handle. And, I think that is a very encouraging thought, that it's like, I've got this, these are my cards because I can do this. I can figure it out. And they've taught me that I can't be so type A and controlling. I'm even addressing my OCD, I would say, head on. I am very, very tidy and neat and organized. Like, my pillows are at right angles, like, and that's exhausting as it is, but I think it's something that I'm dealing with even more now that I have the kids, that I'm like, oh, wow, I really care about this, and I'm making this a part of my day. And I shouldn't have to, because I should be okay with the mess or the, chaos here and there. It's part and parcel with childrearing. And so it's nice to be able to do that work to change. And then the the patience, to be able to really speak to them on a level like they're adults. We're even my 3-year-old, I can speak to him as I would an adult. And so if he wants to, throw a little tantrum or whine about something, kind of making sure that I say, what's wrong? Let's talk it out. What's bothering you? And then validate. Oh, I see, you really, you want to find that dino that's missing, and
That's
now
so
we're gonna have to go
hard.
look.
I know
Yeah,
it's hard,
I know.
buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's you check yourself because you want to laugh your ass off that you're even having this conversation. But it's important to do that. That they feel heard. And at the end of the day, all that a child needs is to feel safe, loved, understood.
Mhm.
That's it. Safe, loved, understood. And so every single interaction you have with them, if you can check yourself and say, do they feel all these things? Then you're good.
I love that. I love that. It is such a journey, motherhood, and it is such a blessing too. I mean, I'm on a much kind of, a little bit more later in the game. And I can tell you that for me, each chapter just got better and better. I was one of those that I never really mourned too much when, they're going to school or, what I just was like, now they're so, because they're just constantly evolving, and to witness that is just wonderful. And now to be at this point where I have an almost 20-year-old and just turned 17-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really magical. And I think that's also good to know that enjoy every part, but there are going to be also some things that are hard. And then there's the next stage and then the new chapter. And isn't this exciting too? But
Yes.
and getting back to the mom thing, it just reminded me when my kids were little, I had a whiteboard and I just put on there, when mama's happy, everybody's happy. And that saying was up there along with a lot of other little quotes. And I didn't think too much about that. I just thought that it was hey, if everybody knows this, because really everything evolves around mom for a while. It doesn't matter if you're always there or not. There is a presence of mom or whoever is the mom figure, the primary caregiver.
Yeah.
And it was always fascinating to me how many women, and I hope, this is again different because I have older kids. I hope though that it is changing, that many women have a lot of guilt associated with spending time for themselves or doing things for themselves. And that for some reason always surprised me. I never had that. And I think it's maybe because I don't know, I just inherently knew I got to take care of me, and then I'm a much better person for everybody, including my children.
Agreed.
And so I would repeat that quote to people, you are going to be better. If you're happier, they're going to be happier. And what would you say to the moms out there who are struggling with, yeah, that sounds all great, but I have no time for myself?
Yeah, no, I know it's hard. And I think because we're pulled in so many different directions, you feel that guilt. Those who are stay-at-home moms wish they were working. Those who are working wish they could be home with their kids. So either way, you're going to feel like you're missing out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say just be vigilant with your schedule. I follow my Google Calendar to a T, and I think it's so important to do that. And so if you say that this 1 hour in the mornings is my time to, enjoy meditation, make my steaming pot of tea, sit, whatever, then carve that time out and make sure that there's no interruptions, and I think that way you are filling yourself up and you're filling your cup first. You can't fill from an empty cup. And then when you are with your kids, you're not going to feel guilty, that I didn't take care of myself first. But yeah, I think I want to distinguish, sorry, do that again. I think I want to diminish the whole idea of mom guilt and guilt and shame as a whole. There's a really great book. A friend of mine wrote, Eve Brodsky wrote this book called Unicorn Space, Find Your Unicorn Space. And this is her second after her book, Fair Play, which is also a great read on dividing the workload at home. And that's something that all families should definitely do, especially in this pandemic life that we had been through. But my unicorn space is that's your special time. And it's something that, it could be you honing in on an interest that fills you up. And for me, it's very much my podcast and my work. And so I feel like that's my life purpose. And for you, it's yoga and your podcast and your clients and students that you're helping on their journey that fills you up inside. So if you are working, a job that you don't love, make sure you find unicorn space and you're doing something that you do love, so that's your time, and then you're just not going to feel, and don't feel guilty about it. That's for you.
I love that. That's wonderful advice. Well, Kanika, this is wonderful getting to know you a little bit more. Where can people find out more information about you and your podcast?
Sure. Thank you. So the podcast is called That's Total Mom Sense. And we even have a spinoff show with a dad and tech founder. He's a very devoted father of two, called What Matters Most with Maple. And so you can find those on anywhere you listen to podcasts and on my website, that's totalmomsense.com. And I'm very active on Instagram and Twitter to a degree. And so my handles there are at Kanika Chadda-Gupta.
Amazing. We'll have all that in the show notes, but make sure you check out what this lovely woman is doing and bringing into the world. I love how you've just forged your creative path, and who knows what's coming in the future, but I'm sure whatever it is, it'll be brilliant. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. You're a light, and I applaud you on all that you've achieved in your life and how you're helping pay it forward for everyone who's listening and those who work with you. It's just, the pleasure is all mine. This is such a wonderful conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. And for everyone listening, as always, I'm pulling for you.